Welcome back to Escaping Reality, the podcast where three of us pals get together and we talk about reality TV, reality competition shows, because life is really difficult right now. And we are not going to talk about it because this is not the place. We are going to do some good old-fashioned escapism. And how perfectly timed because we have a new season of Survivor. It started this week, season 48, if you can even believe it. I hardly can. So, we are talking about episode one. We're going to do a little recap, talk about our thoughts, talk about our first impressions. If you've listened before, you know the drill, so welcome back. And if you haven't, if you're new here, starting with the new season of Survivor, and you thought, I want to hear some people talk about it, I'm going to find a Survivor podcast, and you found us, welcome. We're so happy to have you. You can find more of us on Instagram at Escaping Reality Pod. You can follow, subscribe, all that good stuff on Apple and Spotify. And if you listen to this episode and you're like, wow, I am a fan, you can leave us a rating and a review. All of that said, let's get into the episode. We have three new tribes. If you listened to our cast assessment episode last week, you heard us talking about them from just like the pre-season content that we had. But now we have actual content, actual televised television. So I'm just going to run through a quick reminder of who the players are on the tribes this season, and then we'll get into our first initial thoughts. So we have Vula, which is the Green Tribe, who is Cedric, Justin, Kevin, Mary, Say, and Stephanie. We have Lagi, the Purple Tribe, who is Bianca, Ava, Joe, Shaheen, Star, and Thomas. And we have Siva, the Orange Tribe, which is Charity, Chrissy, David, Camilla, Kyle, and Mitch. That's who's playing. We're going to get to know them very well over the next few weeks, few months even. But for now, let's just do our sort of initial thoughts, first impressions of the episode as a whole. I will start us off because I'm going to keep my thoughts pretty quick because we have a lot to talk about. But I thought it was a really strong start to the season. I have been getting a little skeptical of New Era, and I definitely still am. It's nice to see a new season, change some things up, but we're still in this new era territory where like the things we're changing are still the same things. So like we had Sweat vs. Savvy for a while, we have something different now, but it's still very much the same functionality within the game. Not that that's a bad thing, but it is continuing to make the new era just like a little bit muddy in terms of season to season differentiation. But I really like this cast so far. I think they're a strong group of personalities who are going to be really fun to watch throughout the whole season. I have some thoughts on specific things like the new Beware advantage that we see and, specific budding alliances, but I will save that for the meat of the episode when we get to those things. So, first impression is I think it's going to be a good season, but it is still a new era season. And I'm cautiously optimistic of that fact. So, Stacey, what are you feeling right off the bat?
Okay. I thought it was a good first episode. I watched it live with two of my friends. Shout out to Liesel. It was her birthday. So I didn't rewatch. So I feel like I probably missed some things, but I liked the castaways overall. I definitely it was fun to kind of see the ones that I drafted and see that overall I feel pretty good about them. I think is it Thomas, for example? I was like, I feel good about his showing so far. I was glad to see that. Did like the new replacement, I guess, for Sweat and Savvy. I thought that was interesting. And I know we'll probably talk more about it, but I liked how part of it was like by any means necessary. And then, like you said, Anna, basically the beware advantage and all the symbols on different parts of camp. There was a point, like I know one tribe had noticed them, but I think they're all black, all their symbols. But when it showed the pink bird on the rocks, but it was before they had like noticed it. I just remember being like, "What? No one's gonna say anything about the pink bird painted on a rock. Like that has to be something." So yeah, I liked that they're trying to mix things up. I'm very curious to see how that tribe that it was green, right? That went to tribal. I'm curious to see just what happens next, just because I think there can be some chaos on that tribe. So I am very curious to see what happens. But okay, those are my thoughts. I thought it was a good first one. I don't think I saw a lot of people kind of posting like this was an amazing first episode. I don't know. I just thought it was nice to get to know them or start meeting them. and I just want to say more. So I wasn't like wowed, but thought it was good.
Yeah, I share that sentiment of like it was good, but it wasn't like the greatest first episode ever. But it was
Yeah.
good. But let's not be hyperbolic. Aggie, how are you feeling? Are you about to say that it was the greatest episode ever?
I don't know if I would go that far. I think for me, one coming off the high of 47, which I really ended up enjoying, not even as a new era season, but just as a season of Survivor. I think because they took away some of the new era things on their own, especially post merge. But that being said, like, I think the thing that we have struggled with on premieres in recent years, especially new era ones, is that they are long and they feel long because not that much is happening at camp. You only have the marooning challenge and then the immunity challenge, and they're often 45 minutes apart. And that feels laborious when nothing really is happening at camp. And I think the difference and the reason I really liked this episode, and I think the reason people are on the internet being a bit hyperbolic, is because there was a balance of getting to know people and sharing personal stories with actual things happening at camp, like the colored animals on the walls and finding letters behind string and like all these there were interesting things happening that like didn't necessarily move the gameplay forward, but you as a viewer were like, "Oh, this is new and different, so I'm intrigued. I want to watch. I want to know what goes on with that." Like so many times in my notes, and I haven't done this for Survivor premieres in a long time. I was like, "Wait, what's that? Like that's pretty cool. I wonder if they're going to figure this out." Like there was just a sense of like, "Oh, something exciting has happened." There was a lot of human connection in a time where often that feels stilted and weird in that first episode. I thought the Joe Eva thing was absolutely lovely. Shout out to Team Aggie, like both of you together. That was delicious. I thought Kyle and Kevin having this moment. I just like there was a lot of humanness. Like I went through a lot of emotions during this episode. I don't know, like it feels hyperbolic to be like, this is one of the best premieres ever, because I don't think it was. But I think we are so starved for premieres being this like flashy, big thing where we're like, ah, my favorite show is back. And that's how it felt. So I think that's why it's been so sort of like hyped up. And I did think it was great. So I think that's sort of where I come down at it is I thought it was a great first episode. It made me excited to watch the rest of the season. And often in the new era, the premiere does not make me feel that way.
Something I just want to add also, what you just said about like it felt like a an episode that had a lot going on, but it didn't feel like they were shoehorning in like extra items or new stuff. Like yes, we had the Beware advantage, but we only really saw one. I mean, we saw it on like one and a half camps, but like there wasn't all of this extra nonsense thrown into it to make it feel like there was a ton going on. Like you had the equal part of human connection, a little bit of advantage, the regular challenges that we see, and maybe it's like new era. We're used to seeing all the steps of a Beware advantage and the SWAT versus Savvy, version. So it doesn't feel as overwhelmingly like layered. Maybe we're just used to it now, but I think the balance was really
No, it was
felt
so
normal.
balanced. Like the balance was very well struck. I don't know, like the editing in general, the past 2.5, 3 seasons, they've really hit a stride of like keeping me engaged while not feeling like pandered to,
Yeah,
which is like
really
a
good pacing.
nice, the pacing has been really nice. So I do appreciate that. So like shout out
Shout
CBS.
out to the editors. I'm about to call you out on some nonsense because we start the episode prior to the marooning with this like montage of them all or most of them getting the confirmation that they're going on the season. And let me just tell you, one of the things I hate the most in post-COVID era is number one, when fictional TV shows add COVID as a plot line, and number two, seeing a Zoom screen on my television. There's just something not natural about it, and I don't like it. It was, I get they wanted to include this like moment of pre-game, outside of the game, whatever. Put that somewhere else, put that on YouTube, put that on Paramount Plus. I didn't like it, but that's how the show opens. Then we get the usual intro. They're coming in on the boats. We hear from, a couple players from each tribe of just sort of first impression, like, I'm here and here's what I'm here to do. Nothing extraordinary. Then they get off the boats, they talk to Jeff, they have some banter on the mats. Jeff asks them a lot of like, what inspired you to hear the call of Survivor and get off your couch, get off your ass and play Survivor. And they all make reference to like moments in Survivor's past, like players that inspired them or a certain season, which I just thought was felt a little fan servicey, but that's the game we're in. This is New Era and
Or season 50 servicey. Like I'm
season
playing the
50
long game.
servicey.
Yeah.
Yes, very much like, hey, remember when Survivor was great and inspiring? Here we are. Anyway, not to be like totally cynical of the first 5 minutes of the episode, but that's my impression. But we have some banter on the mat, and then we get right into the challenge for camp supplies. They have to go through muddy nets to get chests up a ramp, to get a key, to get sandbags, to throw the sandbags on the platforms. It's typical Survivor challenge. Loggy wins. I had personally been underestimating them as a team that would be physically capable and also work together well. I texted Stacy and I was like, I'm so surprised. And Stacy was like, no, no, no. I thought that they were going to be good all along. I just didn't speak up. So I have the evidence in my text. Stacy Bin knew that Lagi was going to be good. And she chose to play it close to the chest so that we wouldn't also be like, yeah, yeah, we're going to root for this.
Well,
Stacy.
it's just remember when we were all like the orange team, we were like, okay, I think we all agree orange is going to be the one to watch. But when we said that, I scanned the other ones and I was like, I mean, purple has Eva, purple has Joe, like they do look pretty buff, but I decided to just keep it to myself. So,
What
I'm
is
sorry
this
for putting words
podcast
in your mouth.
for? What is this podcast for, Stacey, if not to share
well,
opinions on
I
the Survivor
remember.
game?
Well, remember last week also I wasn't thinking clearly. My head hurt, so I was like, sure, orange
Oh,
looks good.
yeah. Mhm, mhm.
Oh,
I'm sorry for
okay.
making that assumption for all of us that Orange was looking good, but in hindsight, we really should have known better about Loggy.
I
Oh
think I didn't
gosh.
because I didn't actually research Joe or Eva and I just looked at pictures of them. They didn't in their pictures they look quote unquote normal. And in reality, they're both like very athletic. Like Joe
Yeah.
is a fire captain and very much in shape. Like I was like, "Oh, I should have maybe taken this into more account."
Did we know Star was a basketball player until they started talking about it? Because I didn't see
I
that.
should have guessed based on her height, not to be make sweeping generalizations about people.
I mean, I completely discounted Star from the clip that was posted on Instagram.
Me too.
Just from like the tone and the energy, I was like, too much chaos, not gonna get along with people, like just a lot of energy that I didn't think was going to make a good first impression, but that totally didn't translate to what we saw in the episode, which
No.
I was hesitant about. I was like, is this going to be the way that Star is in every confessional and with everybody? And it just wasn't. I wasn't even thinking about it physically. I just thought based on all of their different personalities that they weren't going to work
Mhm.
together as a team. I
And
thought that would be
Okay.
their issue.
we were
Yeah,
wrong.
big time wrong. But Loggy wins, which means that Siva and Vula do not get their camp supplies. So everybody goes back to camp except for one member from each of the losing teams who are going to go compete for their supplies. This is chosen to be Kyle and Kevin. Kevin hurt his shoulder during the challenge, so he's like a little bit out for redemption. I think somebody encourages him to go, essentially being like, "Hey, Kevin, you didn't get to really participate in the challenge because you got hurt. Why don't you go do another challenge?" Which I found to be the wrong choice, but it ends up working out. So we don't see this until a little bit later, but I figure we'll just talk about it now because it's relevant. So they go to a separate island and they have to do a challenge, which is in stages. And you have to like follow a rope that's like buried in the ground to get to your machete. Then the second stage is like knocking off your pot from a really high stick. Stacey, you mentioned that part of this is like by any means necessary, which I also really loved because it gave them a little bit of creative control in how they chose to go about the challenge. I wish they had taken it a step further and given them choice of like what to go after first. And once you had one thing, like you retrieved it for your team and then you could move on to get another thing. I think that would have been an interesting element of choice to add. And then the third stage is you have to fill your jug up with water to get the key to float to the top to unlock your flint. The jugs are glass, and Kyle's jug smashes. This is, on the one hand, I think it's like super unfair as a piece of challenge design, but at the same time, it emphasizes that you can't just go completely gung-ho. You have to have a little bit of like mental strategy and patience and like a delicate hand. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I'm sort of neutral on it, but his jug smashes. So Kevin wins by default, but in an act of kindness and honor, Kyle decides to help him fill his jug because he's just, instead of getting angry and frustrated, he's like, this is what happened. I'm gonna help my friend here and maybe build an alliance that we can share in the future of the game. So that's what happens in our Sweat versus Savvy, but not. It's always gonna be called that now for me, even though it's not Sweat versus Savvy, but isn't it?
It's like a riff on Sweat versus Savvy because we've been trying to like riff on Sweat versus Savvy since season 41.
Hmm.
And I did like this, that I thought it's kind of cruel to let them get the things that they need and then have to leave them there when they don't win. But I did like it, and I thought it was an interesting sort of twist on it in a way that it wasn't like so also demanding and like gonna run you down entirely, that it like then
Hmm.
takes them out of commission for like a day and a half because they don't have any food and they don't have anything and they're like completely wasted. Like this was like a try and get the things, be creative, be smart about it. Because I thought Kyle like cutting down the tree and having the wherewithal to do that was a cool, like I liked that there were multiple ways to physically like to do it, and that you could have been successful doing it multiple ways. You just had to like balance Sweat versus Savvy and figure out a way to get the thing done and be the fastest to do it. Like, and there was an end point, right? It wasn't like both people went home without it. I kind of wish it had been like, as long as you do it, you both could have it. Because it
Hmm.
feels dumb to handicap a tribe so significantly when they're already handicapped. Like that's always been an issue for me with Sweat and Savvy. But I just want to quickly. Oh wait, Stacey, did you have something to say about this? Because I want to go back quickly to the beginning, but I don't want
Uh,
to throw us
yeah,
off if you have something to say about this.
I mean, all I was gonna add is I do feel like it's Sweat and Savvy because you had to be savvy to decide to like cut down the tree or whatever. Like you have to use your own, like
So
you have to
true.
take things not so literal, and I feel like that's what Sweat and Savvy kind of is anyway. So that's all.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like still an applicable title.
Yeah. I just wanted to pull back to the
Yeah.
beginning. Anna, I understand that it is triggering to have a Zoom screen on your television screen in 2025, but I low key really liked that as an opener. Maybe I'm a sap or I've turned into a sap this week, who's to say? But I thought it was really great. It was like a little clip of everybody. Because not everyone had like a ton of confessionals. I think almost everybody got a confessional though. So like we did
Hmm.
have a lot of coverage of people throughout the show, or we saw them interacting with someone or something like other people. So it didn't feel like I didn't feel like we didn't get to know anyone, but it was like a quick way to like quickly show like a lot of interactions or a lot of reactions to being on the show. And low key, I wrote in my notes the minute I saw Joe in that, I was like, oh no, I misjudged him entirely.
Right.
Like, I was like, oh no, I was worried about him. And now I think I must protect him with my entire being. So,
Yeah.
and that was like 30 seconds into the episode. So it was an interesting way to see them in a completely different way than I had judged most of them. And it took
Yeah.
like a minute and a half. So just
It,
another argument for why it's like counter argument. I liked it.
it was really giving Big Brother vibes because they always show in Big Brother like they get the key. It's not a Zoom, but they get the key mysteriously in their home or at work or something or at the gym, and they're like, the Big Brother key, but it's like clearly someone placed it and is filming you. But so that's what it reminded me of.
Oh, I like that. Okay. All right. We're gonna move on because I have complicated thoughts on it. This is going to be the bulk of our conversation because it's the first episode. We have so much to establish at each camp. We're back and forth between them. We have a lot of sort of budding connections and alliances. So I'm going to go through some beats. We're going to go campsite by campsite. So we start at Loggy. And some noteworthy sort of first impressions and alliances that I noticed. Please chime in if there's things that I missed that you were like, no, 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 this is actually important. Thomas, right away, we hear from Thomas, who says in a confessional, like, I'm good at making connections and I'm going to filter what I'm saying to fit each person as I get to know them. And I liked this because it didn't come off as like shady or like he was going to lie to people. He was just like, no, I'm going to pay attention and I'm going to shift my dynamic in a way that best suits the person I'm talking to. And I like how explicitly he spelled that out. So we see him connect with Bianca, and then we later see him and Shaheen and Joe align, and they're the California Girls Alliance because they're all from California. The girlies, big fan of them. Can't wait to see where that goes. I hope it works out. But Thomas is cute. He's like, I never imagined I would connect so like closely with these two straight guys. He reminds me so much of Nick. If Nick was on Survivor. Not just because he's gay. I think they kind of look alike.
Not just because he's gay
I feel like that was such a
and
Nick
has
thing
a
to say.
mustache.
He does have a mustache. They're kind of built the same. Like he's giving Nick. Anyway, Lagi is cooking with gas. Everybody's like pulling their weight. We hear from Eva about her autism story and some background about like growing up and being on the autism spectrum. She connects with Joe and chooses him to be her number one. And then later in the episode, we see the moment that she shares with him about her autism, sort of explains to him that like sometimes I might need someone to ground me in this game. So she like kind of explains to him the signs to look out for if she's like really struggling in a moment and what to do to sort of bring her back to a grounded place. And Joe feels really moved by this, the fact that she chose to share it with him. He feels a strong connection to her. He gets pretty emotional in confessional, being like, I can't believe that she's trusting me with this, and I'm not going to let her down. He vows to have her back. And these two might be going to the end together, you guys. It might be too soon to say, but wow. This was like a very emotional, moving part of the episode. So these were really the big things that happened on Logi. I think that's the biggest of them. So let's talk about it.
I also had that thought of like, is this a final two or final three situation? Because the way Joe said, I don't even care about my game at this point. Like this girl that I just met, uh, he went into dad mode a bit, which was
Yeah.
adorable. So I just feel like it would be kind of sad to show us that and then like one of them goes home in 2 weeks. It would kind of be like a letdown. But yes, and then Thomas, right? For some reason, I never like I don't picture him as a Thomas, so I always have to like confirm his name is Thomas. Maybe
Is it
I
because
need to
you
call
picture
him
him as
Nick.
Nick?
Yeah, maybe I need to call him Nick. But I liked him just starting that alliance and just being like, I wasn't expecting this, but it just works out. And that's the thing. I think he's going to be like he kind of said, he's going to be very good socially and just be able to like work with the women, work with the guys, like just kind of mold into whatever he needs to do. I hope. So I liked both, but definitely the moment with Eva and Joe, yeah, it was very touching. And even just, she's explaining like you just need to kind of like squeeze my hands if, something happens. Like, she was being very, very vulnerable with someone she just met, which means she got good vibes. So Aggie, you somehow might have chosen two of the key players of the season. So
Guys, when I tell you this, I was watching this on a train and I'm like sitting there like quietly sobbing on the Amtrak between DC and New York City. And I was like, what has my life come to a little bit? But also, how beautiful is this? I think also like not to get like too emotional on the pod, but like my brother has autism and the fact that her autism was so severe at one point that they told her parents that she might never live alone, that she might never get to like sort of have like a independent life. That was like really heartbreaking. And then for Joe to just like immediately meet her like exactly where she was and immediately be like, what can I do to help you if that happens? Like, how can I support you? I literally was like, I actually don't know how to handle this. And then the fact that I had picked both of them, like I was like, I can't handle this information. It was such a beautiful moment of like genuine human connection. And I think that's what it comes back to with this episode is like there's a lot going on at Logi that's interesting and exciting from a gameplay perspective. And there's this deep personal connection, like the boys all coming together in the California Girls Alliance. Like I was like, wow, that's so cute and so precious. And they're also still thinking about like Thomas has this sort of connection with Bianca, but he knows that in order to be successful in this game, he has to sort of dial up different aspects of his personality. I think that's why it didn't feel inauthentic or shady, Anna, is because there's clearly parts of his personality that lean more into the masculine versus into the feminine with Bianca, but the idea that there's this like interplay between that and his ability to sort of like code switch, for lack of better words. I don't think it's actually code switching, but like similar, like in that same vein of like I sort of can read who I'm talking to, find a way in with them, and use my like personality. Like I'm not changing who I am, but using the aspects of my personality to make connections with people in a meaningful way, I thought was fabulous. Big green flags from Joe and Shaheen for just being like, yes, I want to be in the California Girls Alliance. Like I was like, yes, I love a green flag man. Thank you so much. It's very interesting to watch an episode and be like, wow, I was so wrong about so many things, but like, I don't even care because that was like delightful. But like Joe and Eva, shout out to Team Aggie, you cutie pies. Like, I just, I adore you.
And I swear to God, if either of you betrays the other one in the
I
late stage of the game,
I won't make it.
unacceptable.
I won't make it. You can't do it. Okay. So it's you two together till the end. Thank you so much.
Unacceptable. This is a perfect place to also just publicly announce I love Shaheen. I love him. He's so hot. He's so charming. I love him. I'm so happy he's on my team.
I'm so sorry. Hot is not the word I would use to describe him, but I do
Are you
understand.
joking?
I do understand that you could find him hot.
Are
A
you
lot of
actually kidding me? He's like an objectively very
Anna.
attractive man.
Anna.
I think it's like if he didn't have, I'm not a huge facial hair person. I think
Oh my God, you guys, the beard's the best part. The
separate
beard is
from
the
that, I do think he's
I Here's the thing. I am more of a facial hair person than Stacy, but it's too much.
It's gonna
That
get
beard is
unruly
so
also. It looks
significant.
so like nice and trim and like groomed in this first episode. This man is on an island. Things are gonna get hairy. Let's talk about Siva for a second. The Orange Tribe, if you will. So Kyle returns from Sweat and Savvy TM, that's what it's called, empty-handed. He lies to them, but not about what he had to do with the challenge. He lies to them saying that he's a teacher, not a lawyer, because you can't be a lawyer on this show anymore, ever. But we've talked about that in the past. We hear in response to him coming back empty-handed, a lot of positivity from Chrissy. She's like, I think it's fine that they got the supplies because I don't think they know how to use them. Love you, Chrissy. Love that energy. And we hear some arrogance from David, which is kind of expected just like by the everything about him. He reveals himself very much to be a lovable doofus, but he does start to find the pieces of what is going to be the Beware advantage at their camp. It's slightly different than what we see Say find on Vula, but it has similar elements. We see the animals, we see some letters, but we see this before we see it on Vula. So David's paying attention, he's looking around, but he does share this with everybody else, which is a bit of a doofus move, if you will. But it's early days, so it might work out for him. Mitch points out that everybody's acting, moving a little bit aimlessly. He's like, we're really not working on like a shelter. We don't have any supplies. Like, we're just kind of walking around looking for these letters. Like, what are we doing? And he's not wrong. But they do sit around and kind of bond. They talk about it's like their favorite movies, how they like their steak cooked, and maybe like what they do and where they're from. Charity says she likes her steak medium well, and this is a red flag. I don't disagree. If she had said well done, I'd be like, yes, red flag. But she says medium well. So I'm like, it might be okay. We see Kyle and Camilla connect on their shared love of the movie Holes, which is fabulous, and being partially Guyanese. They start to form an alliance, which I love. And they bring in Chrissy and David to have a four with this sort of shared acknowledgement that Charity is on the bottom. So I love Kyle and Camilla together. They're like, we didn't think we would ever have so much in common. They're like palling around. I actually think we don't see a lot of strategizing from either of them. It's just too early for that, aside from being like, we don't like Charity because the way she cooks her steak. And she also throws Kyle's name out there. But I just get the sense that the two of them together are going to be so strategically minded. So I hope that works out for them. And I like that Chrissy and David are involved. Mitch is nowhere to be found, unfortunately.
no.
But, they got some interesting dynamics budding over here.
Team Aggie coming together to maximize their joint sleigh once again.
Insane. That's an insane run.
It's an insane run by Team Aggie in episode one. And honestly, I was like, it can only go down from here, given
Oh
how
no.
I was like, I'm sorry, not all of my people coming together. What do you mean? What do you mean? This is the least practiced I've ever been in making a plan for who I want on my team. So that was really excited. I also think the same thing, and I think Kyle and Camilla are great. I just wanted to point out that David's three questions, which I low-key think we should do as a rapid fire because hilarious. But they were, what's your favorite movie? What car you drive and how you like your steak?
Your
Those three
car.
things. No, wait, he goes, and I quote, those three things can tell me anything I need to know about a person.
Put it
And
in the rapid fire.
I was like, David, you're so important to me.
He's right though. Like,
I think he would hate my answers. I think he's gonna hate all three of my answers. I just want to
interesting.
point out though that he did say Notting Hill is his favorite movie, and that is one of my like top 10 films of all time. It's one
Oh.
of the greatest movies ever. And I was like, oh no, I have a crush on David. That's unfortunate for me. That's unfortunate
Here's
for
the
Oh my
thing.
gosh.
You don't propose that game unless you know your answers are good. Like,
no 1000%. But I
you
do
can't
think
have a contentious favorite movie if you're saying, let's go around and say, I love David. I think he's gonna have a great like 4 episode run. Um, but I could see based on the dynamics, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Siva go to tribal council for like a while.
I'm not trying to put Vula in this position, but I do think Siva and Lagi seem to sort of be having like a more successful vibe at camp. Who's to
Mhm.
say? Who's to say?
Who's to say? Stacey, any feelings on our Siva friends?
Not much more to add. I think David is just so goofy. And I just can't take him seriously right now. But
He has Cody energy in the best
and
way.
he said he wanted to be like play like Cody, I think.
And he
So
is delivering.
He's a
It's a,
self-aware king. I'll give him that.
he's such a doofus, complimentary.
But then we get over to Vula, and this is our most contentious tribe. They will be going to tribal later, so the vibes that are brewing are not as fun time as the others. But Cedric is a butt doctor, and he has this really funny moment. They're all in the water, like introducing themselves, and he's like, "Yeah, my kids are mad because I wasn't like something cool, like a brain surgeon. I'm just a butt doctor." And I love the energy he's bringing. Stephanie is an eager beaver, which she's like aware of, and she keeps using the phrase "sit on my hands" or like "sit on your hands" as this like don't be too eager, like actively stop yourself from being too eager and playing too hard too soon. So she's aware that she needs to sit on her hands at this stage in the game. And this is in major opposition to the way that Say is playing the game and approaching this like early stage because she is raring to go. She wants to play, hit the ground running, and she does. She goes and locks in a core four with the boys, which includes Kevin, who isn't even back at camp yet. But like, she is no nonsense. I'm here to play. Let's start playing. So Kevin returns as a hero with the camp supplies. Mary makes a fire, which is impressive, but she's like, it's really not that impressive. Everybody should know how to make a fire. And she's right. Kevin and Mary start to align based on vibes, it seems. And Stephanie and Mary are emphasizing socializing rather than like gameplay at this stage, which puts them at odds with Say, who goes off to look for an idol or an advantage instead. Before we talk about the idol hunting and the new advantage twists that we see, we kind of talked about the animals a little bit, but we'll talk about it in more detail. Any thoughts on Vula, who we will talk about again when they deliberate before tribal?
I'm a fan of Cedric. I'm glad he's on my team. We'll see how far he goes, but I like him.
He was a good first pick of the draft.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like a solid pick.
Paying immediate dividends, low key.
Mhm.
There's something very like kind of like Joe. He has this like lovely sort of dad energy about him.
Also, side note, Cedric has like the best facial expressions. He gives like the slight glance of an eye or like the like corner turn of a smile. It's great. Keep an eye on him. So, the beware advantage at Vula. As I said, Say goes off to look for it. She finds it. And as we've seen the last couple seasons, it's the parchment that's like, this is a beware advantage. If you take it, it's yours. You lose your vote until you complete each step of it. to completion. So the idol itself is hidden in this like decoder. It's very much giving like time capsule in its shape and construction, but it's locked and it comes with a cipher. And so that has numbers on it, and the numbers are all different colors. Simultaneously, there are these like painted animals hidden around the camp, and those colors correspond to the colors on the numbers on the cipher. And the color of the animal corresponds to the number, and the number indicates the letter in the name of the animal of the same color. So you have to find the animals, match the color of the animal to the number, count the letter in its name, and then unscramble those letters. And this is where, say, enlist Cedric, he like ultimately unscrambles the puzzle, but she does have the boys in on it from kind of the middle. And I think she has a confessional where she's like, I need to get this. Like, I'm not waiting. I'm figuring this out. We're getting it today. And so I think that kind of brings her to the realization that she might need to enlist some help because it's very confusing. Until you figure out what the frick the animals and the numbers all have to do with each other, you're like, what is going on? So she enlists their help. They help. Cedric solves the puzzle. The what's it called? The password, I guess. The key is listen. We'll be interested to see if that comes up anywhere else because what does it mean? Like listen to each other, listen to the call of Survivor, which is something that I'm gonna vibe check Jeff on later. But is that what we're listening for? Like, what are we listening for? To whom are we listening?
The
But that's the
call of the
password.
islands, you
The
know?
call, the call of Survivor. Hear the call. Answer the call.
The call's coming from inside the house, Jeff.
The call's coming from inside the house. So I liked this, and I liked it probably more than the multi-step idols we've seen in the last couple seasons. Certainly like it more than the birdcage and the red paint. It involves more thought and less buffoonery, in my opinion. So I'm
Yes.
interested to see what the versions are at the other camps.
Wow. I really that the birdcage really took me back. That was
Never
triggering.
forget.
Um, I love this. I think it's so cool. I do like that you could involve people to help you, but it's something you could do on your own. Say got very like stressed out about it. And I was like, girl, it seems like maybe you still have a whole day till the immunity challenge and you don't even know if you're going to tribal. Like, I get it. Like, I understand, but also like you could have just been like looking for them as you were like doing things around camp. It didn't have to be this whole thing. But because she was able to involve people because she'd already sort of made this alliance with other people, it seemed lower stakes because she'd already sort of gone to these guys and been like, I like you guys, I want to be in an alliance with you, and like, hey, I found this thing, can you help me do it? And I just loved like all of the sort of mini interactions happening around that, like Cedric having her tell him the letters, he writes them down. He's like, it's listen. And they've been sitting there for like 10 minutes, like trying to figure out what it is. He's like, the word is listen, move on. I did the same thing. Like she read the letters once and I was like, listen. And then Cedric comes over and is like, it's listen. I'm gonna walk away now, but it's listen.
It
Um,
was so National Treasure, when he's typing in the fingerprint letters and he's like, it's Valley Forge. There's two L's. She clicked the L twice. It's Valley
she clicked
Forge.
the L and the E twice. It's Valley Forge. And I was like, okay. But also there's like a cute little moment of Cedric and Say like jumping up and down when she shows it to him. Like there's just a cute like the way that like sharing that became a way for them to sort of make connections. I thought was really cute. I do have Anna, you said it well of like, is it gonna play out the same on the other tribes? Because correct me if I'm wrong, at Siva, they found all the pictures and then untwined like rope and found the letters.
Hmm.
So I'm intrigued to see what because I'm assuming the
The pictures
cipher,
were different too. They weren't in
They
color.
were all black
they
too.
were all black, but the
Yeah.
letters underneath them were the same letters, I think. It was
Mm.
like an
Like,
L and like
yeah,
other things. So it was like, I think it's the same letters. Like, I think the word is still going to be listen, but I'm intrigued to see how the clue is given to the Siva person who finds it.
yeah.
I can't imagine they're like untwine the rope underneath each picture to find the
Or like,
letters.
are they gonna have to like do something with the rope? Like, is the rope
Is
important?
the rope important? And now they've just pulled it off on all of them and maybe thrown it
Oh.
away. Like, who's to say?
Mhm.
Like, where did it go?
Yeah.
So that was my only thing is I was like, oh, it's the same but different, but we don't really know how or why. So I am intrigued for someone at Siva now to like find a beware advantage because they just happen to notice these animals. Like David being the goof he is, was like, do you see that animal over there? Like, what do you think it's for? I was like, okay, David, work. But like that was also like a weird editing thing because I was sitting there and I was like, I literally felt like I was watching like Severance or something. I was like, what does it mean? Like, I was like, what do you think
Yeah.
is happening?
Do you know the TikTok audio it's Alanis Morissette, but it's somebody like singing to the song and she goes, I'm smart, but I'm stupid.
I'm
I was
smart, but
like,
I'm
that
stupid. Yeah.
I'm gay, but I'm straight. That's David.
I cropped
And
Justin
in that moment of
wholesale.
being like, the animals, what do you think they are? Like, that
And
is
then he's
my
like,
bad
oh my
idea.
gosh, there's letters underneath this robe. And I was like, okay. But
Mhm.
again, everyone's like, I don't get it. I don't get it. But it was an exciting twist, and I liked that it was one step. I did like it that it lowered buffoonery levels, and it was just like, do the thing. You have to figure it out, but just do the thing.
Aggie, I want to know from you, does this count as math? Because Say kept being like, I don't do math. And I was like, I think this is English.
Sweet
It
angel,
was
no.
a sick combo of both. Because
But
when I
like
saw that lizard, I thought gecko. That's the gecko.
Oh God.
that is the part that I think could be tricky about it is like if you had gone with eagle for the bird.
Yeah. Or like hawk or something.
Yeah, like you're shit out of luck. Neither one of those words has an I in it. It's not math though.
It's
Um,
counting,
I,
basic,
minimally counting.
basic
Minimally
arithmetic.
counting.
Like as someone who doesn't like math, I was like, I mean, this is the basic math
You
though.
know, it is so little math. You had to be able to count to six. That's not math, babe. That's not math. She did also do like it was like a silent, what the fuck, Jeff? Like to herself. And I was like, I'm actually cackling, say, like, what do you mean? Like, this is not that hard. Of all the things that people have been asked to do for their Beware advantage, don't get me wrong, it was tedious, but it wasn't difficult. And so I was like, say, I think you are so like worrying your head around the idea that maybe you don't have a vote. You've lost the plot. Like this is not a difficult task. Again, tedious, not difficult. You had three other people working on it, girl. What do you mean? And
But she gets the idol. She has her vote back, which is good because, spoiler alert, they're going to tribal. So we do have a challenge for which they need to lose immunity in order to go to tribal. So it's an immunity and a reward challenge. The reward is a toolkit. This is basic stuff. This challenge has everything: obstacles, knots, a Fijian war club, sandbags, a puzzle, the works. And Lagi wins. Classic Lagi. And Siva comes in second. And Vula loses by like 3 or 4 puzzle pieces. It's very sad. And their puzzle is absolutely falling apart by the end of it because they're like punching them in a little too hard. Need to be a little more tactful next time. But they lose. So we're going to tribal. And then we spend the rest of the episode with them deliberating and then going to tribal. So let's get into their deliberation. The seeds have been planted also. Like we're picking back up on things that we saw at their camp already start to brew. So they get back to camp after the challenge. Stephanie takes accountability for fudging the puzzle, and Say and Cedric are actively mad about how she performed at the puzzle and her like lack of awareness both at camp and in the challenge. Kevin is standing to the side being like, I also helped on the puzzle. So if they want to be mad at her, great. As long as it's not me, I'm good. But Mary is close with Stephanie and they don't trust Say because of all the gaming she was doing earlier. So you've got Say and Cedric on one side, Stephanie and Mary on the other. And then in the middle, you have Kevin, who was like, as long as it's not me, I'm good. And then you have Justin. And we hear a lot from Justin in this very short couple minutes that I think speaks to what kind of player he's going to be. He knows that Say is dangerous. But he's already built trust and an alliance with her. But he actively wants to stay sort of in the middle. So Mary and Stephanie come to him and Kevin and they're like, here's the plan, here's like what let's do. He does not take that back to Say and Cedric, that Stephanie and Mary threw Say's name out. They know just because of the dynamic that like it's either going to be Stephanie or Say just because of common sense. But the fact that Justin like won't say that they said Say's name, I think is so fascinating. And he and Kevin talking a little bit, and they're both aware that they need to keep the 4 alliance that was already made between the boys and Say strong, but not at the expense of alienating Stephanie and Mary. So they have this discussion where they're like, we know that Say is a threat. Like, we get it. She's gaming super hard. She has an idol. Like, we're not stupid, but it's pretty clear at the end of their conversation that, like, they're not going to act on that right now. There's still a little bit of doubt going into Tribal just for the sake of the episode, but they're, like, very aware of what they're doing. They're staying firmly in the middle. They're not burning any bridges. I mean, maybe after the vote, some bridges will be burned, but they're also not under any illusions that, like, Say is a threat. She's a dangerous player. They're happy to be aligned for now, but they're like shockingly aware of the situation at hand, which I did not expect from the two of them. So, thoughts on everybody here at camp, especially Justin and Kevin?
My thoughts were I did find it a little strange how Justin refused to like say the name. I mean, I don't like he was just being a little dodgy for someone like I think it is he's not sure which group he wants to really move forward with, maybe. So I didn't want anyone to be like, well, Justin told me this, but I thought it was gonna backfire and like they were gonna send him home or something. So I was like, they're gonna be like, he's because I thought Say would be like, he's being too sketchy. Like, let's just get him instead. But so that was my main thing with them. It's just and yeah, I think Say, well, I'll wait till we get to tribal actually for that stuff.
I think what made it believable to Say and Cedric is because Stephanie and Mary, like, in their minds, are not playing at all. I don't think it
Yeah.
was a shocking thing to be like, they're not even throwing a name out. They're not like they don't even know what they're doing.
I think it kind of speaks to some of the tricky waters people are navigating in the 26-day format because Stephanie and Mary fell into this category of like, well, we didn't want to be playing the game too much too fast, but the rest of their tribe was kind of like, we got to play pretty quickly. Like, there's kind of no time to waste. And so it's interesting that that kind of worked against them because potentially in another tribe, that might have been the vibe of like, we don't have to play yet. But it's also like when you're the first to go to tribal council, you do have to play. You don't know that in the first 2 or 3 days that you're there with no immunity challenge. Like, you don't know that you're going to be the first tribe to go to tribal council. Like, Say was kind of, it was tough to sort of root for her because she at times felt like she was trying to run too many things at points where I was like, Say, I think if you were to come to them with an idea, but also be kind of more willing to have a back and forth. It felt a little bit like it's my plan because I have the idol and I told you I'd share it with you and you're my alliance of four. And that felt a little bit off to me. But the fact that Stephanie and Mary like hadn't considered that and they were like, we're just trying to like hang out and kind of chill. It was like, that seems rough. I will say that the editing did make it seem like maybe Say was going to be in more trouble than she actually was.
It
Um,
did a good job of creating doubt.
but mainly because like Stacey, I feel like you were talking about like Kevin and Justin did have this moment of like we're kind of in the middle. Like we can play the middle a little bit on this. We just have to decide what direction we want to go. And I'm intrigued to see if that is something they continue to lean into, especially if Vula ends up having to go to tribal council again. But it was just an interesting sort of dynamic of like four people who are willing to play the game and two people who came out to play Survivor and they were excited about it, but they weren't like from day one, second on the beach, they were like, yeah, I gotta go full ham. And then that ended up being their downfall. In another season, it might have not been that case, but I don't know.
And it comes up at Tribal. Like we'll talk about Tribal now because this conversation does carry over and there's a lot of interesting perspective because they do some like generic catch up. Jeff asks them, how the first couple of days has been going. This like contention between, relationships, building relationships and socializing versus the gameplay and like getting out there and looking for idols and making alliances, whatever. Stephanie talks a little bit about astrology. I personally get phony vibes from her, because I feel like once she came out as an astrology queen, people would assume that I would feel the same way about her that I did about Cassidy. Wrong. Different vibes entirely. Just want to make that known. Justin makes a pizza place analogy. We knew this was coming. I hope there's more. But to get to the point, Say calls out Stephanie for like looking at the stars instead of like playing the game. And Stephanie claps back and she's like, I might not be playing the game that you're playing or someone else is playing, but like we are all here to play. Kevin, I think it's Kevin, chimes in with like more of a middle ground perspective of just like everybody has a different style and there's no wrong way to play Survivor. and just keeping that perspective, like year after year, season after season, we see different types of players win the game. Therefore, like it's clear that there are different ways to play the game. Say ultimately comes out as the winner of this battle. So whatever that says about this particular tribe and this season dynamic of what they value in gameplay, maybe that will come back later in the late game of like what they perceive as the right way to play as a jury. But it is important to remember, like there is no one way to play Survivor. And so I appreciated this conversation, even though I was a little annoyed with Stephanie and her particular style in this instance. So it was an interesting conversation that definitely comes up every season. So I appreciated the varied perspective coming from Say and Stephanie and Kevin. And then she plays her shot in the dark. Yikes.
I'm glad that even though she was an astrology person, you weren't blinded by that and you could sniff out the
Oh
phony.
gosh, no.
Um, well, okay.
Oh no, what's about to happen?
Nothing too insane, I don't think. It's such a long pause because I feel like I'm repeating myself about the shot in the dark.
Oh
Mm.
God. Yeah.
But like your only possibility of success, because you guys didn't think you could get four, but you maybe would have gotten two, three votes, and then it would have been a tie, right? So, Stephanie, your best case scenario was 3v3. But if you use your shot in the dark and it doesn't work, you have now not made it a tie. Does that make sense?
No, I think Stephanie and Mary thought they had Justin and Kevin.
Did they think they had just so
I think
I
so.
think so.
okay, maybe that's what's sort of the piece that I missed because to me I was like, girl, if that doesn't work, you're going home.
No, they definitely thought it was 4 against 2.
Maybe the reason I didn't feel like that was because I don't remember them talking specifically to Kevin in a meaningful way. I know they talked to Justin
Mm.
and Justin talked to Kevin.
I think Kevin and Justin both just gave this impression of like, where we could be with you, maybe.
Okay,
I
because
think
actually
Mary
now that I
talked to
say
Kevin
that, I
because they
do
were
feel like
kind of
they
aligned.
yeah, now that I
Okay.
say that, I do think there was this like kind of conversation, and I think Stacey, you maybe brought it up. There was this kind of conversation between Kevin and the girls, like at the fire. I don't know. It just felt sort of, I don't know, misguided to play your shot in the dark. And also, like, once again, if it's gonna work one out of six times, like, I think we've seen it played six times and it's worked once. That's such a lame payoff.
It's such a lame way to go out of the game when you're already the one going home. Do you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
when ugh, when you are gonna be the one voted out, which you don't know as a player, but as an audience, yeah. And then to like go through the motions of losing your vote, your last thing that you can actively do in the game, to give that up to play your dinky shot in the dark for Jeff to be like, not
not
safe.
safe.
And then that's how you go home. Like, that's way worse than just getting voted out. I'm sorry. It's embarrassing. I know there's no way to control the edit of like how much time in the episode is left. But like when there's a minute 30 seconds left, you know
You
she's
know,
not going to be safe because we don't have time for a revote. So like
that's what I
Yeah.
was just thinking. Yeah.
it feels like cheating to look at it that way, but I don't know. There's just something about it that feels so lame.
It's a bit lame. I just looked back at my notes. I took more notes than I thought on this episode. Go me. But the Stephanie Sai like fighting at tribal council was like a little bit uncomfy.
Yeah, not cute. Honestly, from either of them. I don't like that we're fighting.
I, it felt a little early to be fighting. And in a way that like wasn't fun TV fighting. Shout out to the traders. Like at least on the traders, the TV fighting is like kind of fun. This felt like deeply personal in a way that I was like, you don't know each
We were
other
just
that
taking
well.
jabs, and I
I was
didn't
like, you
like
don't
that.
know each other like that. I'm a little uncomfy.
And we don't need the women fighting against each
That
other.
that part, Stacy,
I know.
Not during International Women's Month.
not, I mean, technically it wasn't International Women's Month yet, but yes.
So they had to get it in. They had
Now
to-
it is. So put that on lock, ladies. Get it together.
Incredible. But Stephanie goes home. She was Team Anna, slightly begrudgingly. Although that final three picks, to have picked Stephanie over Joe and Star, mistake on my part. Huge mistake on my part. Hindsight is 2020. I never should have picked a blonde woman. You know how I loathe them. So that's my
That's for
karma.
me.
But that brings us to the end of the episode. We do still have some things to talk about. So, midway through the episode, where Jeff would normally say, apply to be on Survivor, he pops up with QR code, which we knew this was coming. We knew that there would be some aspect of fan voting for elements of season 50 during this season as it airs. And we saw our first couple questions, which they had announced that these would be the questions. I didn't realize they would be all at once up front. But we voted on tribe colors, rice or no rice, live finale in LA or in Fiji, and fire making or no fire making at Final Four. These were the questions. I personally picked no rice, live finale, no fire making. I have to imagine everybody else also picked no fire making and live finale. But I'm curious to see what the rest of the questions will be this season and what else we might be able to impact. And I just hope that the people choose the right things.
I voted for the same things. I voted for the combo of tribes where there was like a tealish type blue, I
The
think.
best one.
Yeah. But yes, I am curious because we know it's not going to be like changing the length. We know it's not going to be the actual players. So I'm like, what? I don't care about much else. But maybe getting rid of shot in the dark. We could vote on that. So
Oh, I hope so.
so yeah, because I did listen to Jeff's podcast this week. Rachel's the new host, and I feel like they talk, or they actually played this long clip of him, like I think he was on some talk show explaining this whole thing, and he was like,
He's been doing a
"This
ton of
is
press.
yeah," and he was just like, "This is how we can put it back in the audience's hands or something," and I'm like, I just want to vote on the players then, like I want like a
Mhm.
second chances type thing.
Well, first off, we just need to name that the colors were annoying to vote for because they're the same colors. Like two of every set is colors we have every season. So,
It felt like we
okay.
got tricked by the moniker of choose the tribe colors.
Yeah, like I was just like, we're not really picking the tribe colors. But like, okay. I just wanted to point out that I voted to give them rice.
Interesting.
My reasoning being that I actually think starting at a disadvantage makes it worse for the entire game. So just give them rice. I'd rather them be able to focus on making good alliances and good television. Give them
Hmm.
food.
I don't
I actually,
disagree.
I think
Um,
taking away rice just makes it harder for no reason.
a lot of people online were pointing out the wording of the fire making question of how much they
Oh,
took
it was
up.
leading. It
It
was
was
leading.
leading. Like the options were very much like, do you choose to let the players make fire at Final Four and have
Mm.
some
Oh,
control over their
oh,
destiny
yeah, no,
in
I
a
have the wording. It
jaw-dropping
says
spectacle,
keep it.
or
Keep it. It gives the players control of their destiny. Lose it.
Mm.
Let them vote someone out, just like the early seasons. I was like, Jeff, don't
no,
try
no,
and
no.
sneak me
Okay.
into this.
But the question itself is also like, do you want
No,
dramatic,
look,
historic moments?
yeah, the final four fire making showdown has delivered some of the most dramatic
Uh,
moments in Survivor history, but not every fan is on board. Where do you stand? I'm sorry, Jeff. No fans are on board.
It was so passive aggressive. Ugh. Speaking of Jeff, time to vibe check him.
Oh, thank God.
Who's first? Oh, Stacey,
oh
you're
Lord.
first. Ooh, now
How
that
do
we're all riled up.
how do I 47 wait, we're on 48. 48
48.
seasons in forget that we vibe check Jeff.
Honestly, a great question.
An important question.
Because honestly, this is the thing, and maybe this is my vibe check. Jeff is like in the background for me these days. Like I'm not even he can do his whole normal thing, but I don't even like it doesn't register in my brain. And
Unless he does something
especially
truly out of pocket.
yes, but especially this season because I think yeah, like I saw all this press stuff he was doing. Like he's just I mean, he's a marketer too. Like he is selling this thing. He's trying
Yeah.
to squeeze every like ounce of juice out of this thing before because what did he say on it was either his podcast or some other clip. He was just like, I just love this show so much. Like I this oh he was like, this is the best gig I could possibly ever have. And all I'm just like, I feel like he's fighting for his life, but no one's trying to take it away from him. Like no one's trying to take the show away from him. But yeah, so that might be my vibe check is like in the show, I kind of just tune him out at this point.
Aggie, what's your vibe check?
Um, I have a few. And I don't think they're gonna get into yours, Anna, because you kind of already previewed what you're vibe checking him for.
Hmm.
First, when explaining the tribe names, he got really dramatic and he was like, Siva, you're the sun. Then he was like, Vula, you're the moon. And I was kind of thinking that Lagi would be stars, and he goes, the whole sky, and like does this little arm thing. And I was like, Jeff, I hated that. But also like a little rude that they're the whole sky and Siva and Vula are just one part of it.
I
Feels
also remember being like, what's the third one gonna be? I was like, are
what's
they
the
the
third gonna
Earth?
be? No, no, it's
Is
the
it
whole
like the sun, the
sky.
moon, and the Earth?
No, no,
No,
sun, the moon, and the sky. And I was like, one of those is greater than
not
the
as good as
other.
the other.
What do you mean? So okay. I also just like that in his little marooning speech, he named the Mamanuca Islands of Fiji instead of just saying we're here in Fiji. I was like, weird time to get specific, my guy. Weird time to get specific. I also just love when Jeff gets a little like literate, and he was like, here's the rub of all of this. I think it was at tribal council. I was like, come on, Shakespeare. So yeah, Jeff, you were doing like silly goofy things this time, but I did enjoy them.
Speaking of silly, goofy things, hear the call of Survivor. In this opening bit on the mat, he says it at least 4 times. The call. I think it's more than four. I think it's maybe six. He asks you, when did you hear the call of Survivor? Are you going to answer the call of Survivor? The call. Like he keeps saying the call. And every single time it's punctuated with the sound effect of like a conch or like some kind of like iconic Survivor noise to
Oh,
literally be the call of Survivor. The call is coming from inside the house. So that's my vibe check. I'm interested to see if he says it more. And now that the word and the password is listen, listen for the call, you guys. It's all connected.
answer the call.
Answer the
Yeah.
call of Survivor.
Like that
Anyway,
can't be the only way that we describe applying. I do have a theory, and you can cut this if you want. I have
ooh,
a theory they're getting way less applications than in previous seasons. Like still people are applying, but I
hmm
don't think they're getting as many as they used to.
I'm gonna be so real with you. I don't think it's as easy as it used to be to like leave your job and
Yeah.
your life and like potentially put those things at risk to go play a game.
Well, let me apply now though. If there's fewer people, this is my chance. And do I care about
Now's the
my
time.
job? Not really.
Yeah, like Stacey, I just have this weird vibe. It's a weird vibe I have. I think there's still a lot of people applying. But I think I think there's a whole group that is just like cut off and like originally, like they watch 30 seconds of this video and they're like, no, that's not it. And so I don't know, there's just something about it that feels a little desperate. Like, why is Cedric like making a comment at tribal council that feels like he was like, this is not watching the show on CB on Wednesday nights on CBS. We're actually playing. And I was like, did Jeff tell you to say that? Like, what do you mean?
It's getting to be like I'm going to be on Survivor, the TV show, as an entity versus I'm gonna go play Survivor. Like it's
Yes.
obviously still the game, but the emphasis is on like Survivor as an institution, which it
Yes.
is for sure. But like the way that we talk about it and contextualize it on the show sometimes is like you were sitting watching on your couch and now you're here. You're in the TV.
Yeah. Something about it feels inauthentic.
Well, and we've
Um,
completely like stripped the show of like I hate to use the word realism, but the things that it used to have, like an actual marooning or like being stranded in like your regular people clothes. Like they all just like pack for clothes to wear to play Survivor. Like they're all in athletic wear.
it
And like
also
there's
like
certain elements like the cultural rewards, they don't do any of those. Like it's devoid of any kind of substance in that way.
I also just like who brought up Yul Kwan? Was it Mitch who brought up Yul?
I think it
Or
was
was
Kevin.
it was Kevin? I just they that like iconic picture of Yul in his belted cargo shorts on the top of that like shipwreck. I'm just like, we don't do it like this anymore.
Mm-mm.
Like stop bringing up the past in that way, because now I'm just pissed that we don't have an exile island where Yule can be looking for an idol in the in a shipwreck.
I don't know. I don't even remember what the first part of this conversation was, so we're gonna move on. Castaway of the week. Aggie, who's it gonna be? I don't know who mine is yet. I have to think.
Oh no. I think I might go Thomas. Just
Mm,
because I did think it was really such a like nice articulation of how to play the game of like heightening different aspects of your personality to fit in with certain groups of people and like make genuine connections with them. Like special shout out to Joe and Eva, but like you can't pick two. So I think I'll go Thomas this week, but I have
yeah.
my eye on those two and like what they're getting up to, and Camilla and Kyle. Like there's a whole host of people that could have gone in this spot, but I think I'm gonna do Thomas.
He's a good choice. I was thinking about picking him as well. I don't know. Stacey, do you have one yet? Because I'm still thinking.
I think so. It might seem out of the blue, but I'm gonna go with Mitch. I think Mitch
Hmm.
like stood out to like I was most excited about Thomas and Mitch. So I just feel like he's good. Like I think he's gonna be fun to watch. But I feel like he's actually gonna be like I kind of looked at their Instagrams after because I know we follow all of them
Hmm.
now. And he's like a long distance runner and stuff. Like I think he's gonna be pretty good at some of these challenges, and I think he's gonna be very likable. So he stood out to me.
Dang, I don't want to pick the same as anyone. I'm gonna go crazy and pick Justin
Okay.
because I think that he is more than meets the eye with what we heard of him as far as like self-awareness of playing the middle and like choosing to go with his alliance and the on paper stronger player in say keeping her in the game, but also just being so aware of like the risk that that poses moving forward. And just a testament, I feel like always people in the middle, like everybody's talking to you. Like you're on both sides, which this early in the game, like I think is a good place to be. So I'm gonna pick Justin, Pizza Boy. Okay. I did post a fans have spoken. We had a couple entries. We threw some entries in there from our personal accounts. But our pal, your pal, not really my pal, but Instagram pals, Liesel said, protect Eva and Joe at all freaking costs in all caps, and yes. And then Survivor Fact Checker said, this is the most excited I've been about a new era season. And yeah,
From a premiere episode, I would say that's probably true.
yes. And from a cast perspective, like there's no one that I'm actively like, ooh, I really don't like them, and I'm not like interested to see what they do or how they do it. So, yeah, I think that sentiment is a good one. So, two rapid fire questions. So, first question is based on our cast assessment that we did and then watching the first episode, who surprised you the most or who was most different from your initial pre-game impression of them?
Hmm.
For me, it's Camilla. I
Mm.
was ready to like not care about her at all. I just nothing about what I saw pre-game had me like that interested. But then seeing her actually on screen and hearing her in confessionals, seeing her connect with Kyle was so fun. And we got so much personality out of that. She also seems really smart and like they didn't lose their challenges. So, I mean, they didn't win, but they didn't lose technically. So that's a good sign. But I think I'm most excited to see what she does in the game. And I was ready to just not pay attention to her at all. So that's my biggest shift for sure.
I mean, I have two that like both of them, I would say I'm surprised. One is Justin, and I almost made him my castaway of the week. Because yeah, I just think his energy is a lot, like I said before, is a lot calmer and like he's just gonna kind of listen and go like he'll be easy to like he'll maneuver where he needs to go, maybe. But also Star, because I went on this
Mhm.
whole tangent about how Star's video was a no for me. And I'm still not sure. Like it was just one episode. Maybe she didn't
Yeah.
get warmed up fully, but she seemed much calmer and much more like just able to go with the flow than I expected. So I would say both of them.
I would say Star as well. Yeah. Aggie?
It's interesting. Like There's a few like Joe, I completely misjudged him. Just like in
Mhm.
general, I think the like firefighter, like guy energy, like that, I just feel like I wrote him off because that's not normally like for me, normally they're eye candy, not like genuinely interesting human beings. And he happened to be both, which was like really lovely. I think Star similarly, like I don't know, something about her energy. I like something about it just didn't feel good to me. And then when I saw her, I was like, oh, she actually is like genuinely seems like a lovely person. David, I was not expecting to be goofy as fuck, and I lived. I thought Kyle being so lovely and kind while still competitive when he was doing his thing with Kevin, I was like, wait, I kind of love how he could. I think someone on Twitter pointed out like he could have pouted and like been really upset that he had fucked up and had like a tantrum on the beach while Kevin finished. And instead he was like, I fucked up. That's on me. I'll own it with my tribe, but let me help you finish so we can be done faster. And I just thought that was like a lovely I already liked him because he was on my tribe. So something about him sort of gave me good energy from the jump. But then I was like, oh, that's so nice. And then like I said, like I made him my castaway of the week, but Thomas was a pleasant surprise.
Okay. That brings this episode to a close. I know it was a long one, but we had a lot of ground to cover. We hope that you
Hannah,
made it to the
are
end
we
of this
not going to
one.
do our other rapid fire? You're just
Oh
going to
yeah, I
ignore
thought
David's
Oh my
rapid
God.
fire?
we.
You're so right. Do you want
But
to take it away?
your comment still stands. Yes, we can do it quickly. So
Oh
take
my God,
some things.
rip.
But David in this episode posits that you can learn everything you need to know about someone by asking three questions. What is their favorite movie? What kind of car do they drive? And how do they like their steak cooked? So we are going to take a few seconds to think about.
I'm ready.
Okay, Anna, do you want to start us off? Because you already know.
Yes. The car that I drive is a Chevy Equinox.
Oh, okay.
My favorite movie, it's a tie, but Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette
Nice.
and Big Fish, which is a film by Tim Burton. And if you haven't seen it
Mm.
and you're like, I hate Tim Burton, I don't like his stuff, he's too weird, it's not like the other stuff. Watch it. It's a beautiful, beautiful story, and Ewan McGregor is in it. And my steak, it depends what kind of restaurant I'm in. If I'm in a regular restaurant, I will say medium rare. And if I'm in a fancy restaurant, I will say prepare it however chef would like to prepare it.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah, there we go.
Wow. Okay. I will go. I also drive a Chevy. I will say I don't like it wasn't exactly by choice. Like I'm in
Honestly, same.
like in the future, I'm probably not gonna get a Chevy, but it's been fine. But I drive a Chevy Trax. Okay, movies. It's hard to say, but I'm gonna go with I love Remember the Titans. And I also
Nice.
love and I also love Interstellar. Those two movies I love. And then steak, I really don't get steak that much, even though I love some ground beef. I'm a beef person, but don't judge me. But I would usually say medium well. So I feel like David would say I'm crazy or I'm not trustworthy, but I don't really want to see red in my meat. Same with burger. So there you have it.
I don't drive a car. I take the
I forgot.
subway.
I forgot.
So to start there, I don't have a car. So David, do with that what you will. The only car I've ever driven and owned and like drove around on my own accord was a Toyota Avalon. I had a really old one and the license plate said molecular, and everyone in town knew me by that license plate. I don't eat a lot of steak. I am personally not someone who really enjoys meat in that way. So I'm like lame. But I, Anna, am similar to you. If I'm in a steakhouse, I'm like prepare it how they tell me, how the chef wants to do it.
Yeah.
I don't order it very often. Similarly, Stacey, I don't like seeing red in a burger, so I'm definitely a well done burger person, but steak I'm a little bit more lenient on. I just can't do like rare or very rare. That freaks me out. I'm like, it's still alive, basically. Like, what do you mean? That is too much for me. That's a road too far. And then my favorite movie.
I need this to redeem you because so far you're like, I don't like steak and I don't have a color.
Yeah, David's really making choices and making a lot of thoughts about me. Here's the tea. They're probably animated,
Oh, as they
and
should
it
be.
is How to Train Your Dragon and Ratatouille.
Oh,
So
Excellent
Ratatouille.
choices.
two of the best films that have ever been created. And I'm going on record now that when they release the live action How to Train Your Dragon, it's going to be worse. And don't go to see it. Watch
Yeah.
the cartoon instead at your house in protest.
Stop with the animation slander, Hollywood.
But also, those are just two of the best movies ever created. So, and also, like, shout out to David for picking a rom-com. I also love Notting Hill. Like, we could go down that road if we wanted, but that's probably it.
I love it. That was a fun game, you guys. If I didn't already know you, I'd be making some
Make
assumptions.
some snap judgments about me. It's fine.
It's a good thing we're already friends. I know it's been a long episode, but if you're still here listening, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you will watch along and continue to find us. I might play around putting episodes on YouTube this season to see if
Oh.
maybe we can have some new friends find us. We'll see how it goes. It might be too much work. But for now, this was great. Can't wait to see where the season takes us and who's going to win. And thanks for listening. And thanks for escaping reality with us because it's rough out there. Bye.